good evening. Oh shoot, I hooked up to the wrong camera. Hang on, I have my teaching camera on, not my VTuber camera. Hello. Oh my gosh, we have Elliot, we have Pillow, we have Elita. Hey everybody. Happy Wednesday. Yes, it is time for Spoopies and Silly Guys. Definitely. Folk tales galore. Galorial. Yes, there are a lot of bathroom cryptids in the modern age, but I don't think we're going to be going over any of those. I mean, I could be wrong, but, like, we're mainly going over, like, older stories, older folklore. Okay. Where is it? There it is. Okay. Alright. Let's... If it will connect. Please love me. Ugh. I know I was far from the mic. It's because I was trying to hook up my camera here, but we're working now, so we're okay. We're good. All right. Here we are. Are we talking about the chupacabra? No. The chupacabra does not exist in the Netherlands. That's Mexico. Although we have talked about, like, North American cryptids and folklore, but we have not specifically done Mexico, so that could be another idea for us to explore, right? I think so. But today, since I am off to the Netherlands and Belgium next week, we are talking about Dutch folklore and folklore from the Low Countries. So apparently the Low Countries refers to modern day Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So, like, since I'm gonna be in that area, we're gonna look at some stories and mythology and folklore from that area. So I can see, I don't know, I can see what I can be on the lookout for. Technically, I was trying to go to, like, a fairy tale, like, folklore theme park. And technically, it's, like, an hour and a half out of Amsterdam by car, but, like, bitch, I can't drive over there. So, like, I tried to look at all the public transportation, but the shortest amount of travel time that I found to this theme park was 3.5 hours, and I'm like, no. Because we only have 2 days in Amsterdam before we go cruising down the rivers of the Netherlands to our other destinations. So I'm just gonna have to find other things to do. But I am sure there will be no lack of fun stuff to keep me occupied. You've never heard of the Danish chupacabra? Sure. The Entangled Mermaid. Yes, I did look at that one. There was a specific resource that I found that I'm going to see if I can find again. Because I think I searched for a specific fairy tale. Because I was looking at their, like, list of stories. And then it was like, this one looks odd. But we'll have to get to that in a minute. So the Entangled Mermaid was one. And then, if they're not already on the list of creatures for this one, I suggest the Kludde and the Bullebuk. Okay. Alright, hang on. Let me pin that comment so I don't forget it. Pin it! Okay. Okay, cool. Alright, you're pinned. Henry's here! But Henry got stuck in ad hell. Hi, Henry. Oh, the woman with 366 children? Absolutely not. No, thank you. Alright, but I've pinned your comments so I can remember those suggestions when we get to them. So, You need to hear about Creature! Yes! Henry's back. Welcome, Henry. Welcome back after ad hell. And hello, Boomsday. Welcome, welcome. Yes, we're talking about creatures. We're talking about stories. And there was one in particular that, like, piqued my interest. Let's see. It was called The Boy Who Wanted More Cheese. And I was like, that is very specific. That is, I mean, like, I am also a boy who wants more cheese. Yes, call me cheese boy, sure. But I'm like, interesting that they make a fairy tale out of that. But we're gonna go for it. So I found a book called Dutch Fairy Tales for Young Folks, and it has so many stories. So we can go. The Entangled Mermaid is in it. But we also have the Cheese Boy. Dutch is an interesting language. Yes, there will be lots of silly names. I've been doing some Dutch on Duolingo, and I'm doing my best. I mean, honestly, the grammar structure is very similar to English. Very similar to English and German. So, I am the cheese boy, the one who cheeses. Yes. But I've just been trying to, like, get some Dutch to where, like, I can order something, or, like, ask where the bathroom is, or, the essentials, right? So, we're gonna go for it. Kloek? I don't know, I have not learned that word yet. Kloek. German is part of the construction of English. Exactly, yeah. So, and it's similar in some ways to German. Where is my... Hello, I mostly lurk, but I am here to learn about some mythology. Well, thank you, Katie. Much appreciated. Please enjoy your lurking. Dutch has a lot of ooh sounds. It's the silliest sounding word. Klok. Okay, klok. What does that mean? Klok. Klok. Dutch. Hello? Oh, it's a clock. Yes, a clock. I mean, that makes sense. What's the word for cheese? I haven't learned the word. I've learned milk, water. Oh, the Dutch word for sandwich? That's one of my favorites. The Dutch word for sandwich is boterham. Boterham. Ik eet een boterham. I'm eating a sandwich. I just think it's delightful. Like, it's a delightful world. Yeah, get me a boterham. Yeah, let's see. Water, apple, milk, boterham. Sup? Sup is juice. Het sup. What other words have I learned that are fun? Rijst? Rijst is rice. I mean, they start you off with a lot of, like, cognates. Kind of like reverse hamburger. Yeah, boterham. Ah, I see it. Jus is juice in French. Vogel? Vogel is too cool to be bird. Well, birds are cool, right? It can sound funny or intimidating. I like that. I was over here looking for my phone so I could pull up Duolingo, but I'm using it for VTubing. Let's see. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Oh well. We have some K's, cheese. Okay, cheese. Dutch. Apparently, the Dutch eat a lot of. Oh, Gouda is from the Netherlands. Okay. No, but apparently Dutch people eat lots of cheese. So, we're gonna have to bring the Lactaid for my poor partner. But I'll be fine. One more creature. Oh God, can I even read that word? Bloedzuiper. Bloedzuiper. Interesting. The Dutch love their dairy. Yes. Birds are cool. They're silly. They're very silly. Birds are the silliest creatures, but they have descended from dinosaurs. The entirety of West and Central Europe eats a lot of cheese, and god damn it, I love it. We can hate on European people for a lot of shit, but damn it, cheese exists. Let's see. No, I want to know what cheese is in Dutch. It's giving me lists of Dutch cheeses in Dutch. How do you say it, Google?
Gas.
No, that didn't sound right. Come on, Google. One more time for me.
Gas.
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 Gas. Gas. Cheese. The one thing Europeans gave us, cheese and chocolate. Also good bread. Okay, so speaking of cheese. Hang on. Where is my... Dun, da, da! Okay. Hang on. Let me fix our title here, because that was from our Slavic thing. The boy who wanted more cheese. This man didn't skip leg day. No, he did not. Nah, the Slavic monsters were pretty swole. Hang on. Okay, the boy who wanted more cheese. All right, let's do a picture. I have a picture. And it's a local file. Let me pull it up. There we go. There he is. There's the little guy. Just snacking away. Even, like, lounging on wheels of cheese. I wonder what sort of crazy European-style punishment this child is going to encounter. Because there's always, the fairy tales were meant to teach children a lesson. Ooh, wine too, yes. I want some good bread, yes. Yes, European bread. Oh boy, like, oh, European bread is so good. Actually, I was having a discussion about bread with some of the folks at WeebCon when we were out at dinner, because, like, there are a lot of people with celiac in the U.S. Celiac or gluten intolerances in the U.S. can eat bread in Europe. Because European bread uses, like, they actually use the yeast to proof the bread and ferment the bread. Meanwhile, American bread uses a whole bunch more sugar to, like, quickly proof the bread in a shorter amount of time rather than letting the yeast ferment. So, you know, the gluten isn't fermented by the yeast. So it's interesting. Note to self, don't overdose on cheese. Yes. His throne of cheese, the dream! Right. Let it yeast, yes. Americans or capitalized society needs quick food. Yeah, pretty much. Did I eat at one of the hotels? No, because they're expensive and I had a car. So we drove. We ate. There was a place like, I don't know, 10 minutes away from the hotel called Boba Chicken. We got boba tea and we got chicken, like Korean fried chicken. It was delicious. That we also went to the izakaya. That was delicious. And I brought breakfast stuff with me to have in our hotel room because I'm a cheap bitch. I'm a cheap bitch. So, same thing happened to, yes, true. Pricey like a lot of the other stuff out there, but you can actually make an argument for it being worth it. It depends. It depends. Like, I mean, if we were feeling bougie, we could have got some steak. But one of our squad was a vegan. And a lot of the hotel restaurants really did not have a lot of vegan options. So we went to places that would have vegan options. Like before we left on Saturday evening, we went to Damassi's Mediterranean, and that was delish. We love nachos. Nachos are fun. All right, but cheese. The boy who wanted more cheese. So I'm going to be reading the story out of the book because good old Gutenberg project put this together. So let's learn about this kid and what had happened. So here we go. Our first story of the evening. The boy who wanted more cheese. Klaas von Bommel was a Dutch boy, 12 years old, who lived where cows were plentiful. He was over 5 feet high, weighed 100 pounds, and had rosy cheeks. That's a very skinny child. 5 foot and 100 pounds. That's very thin. His appetite was always good, and his mother declared his stomach had no bottom. Ah, yes, puberty. The child has hit puberty. Congratulations. His hair was of a color halfway between a carrot and a sweet potato. It was as thick as reeds in a swamp and was cut level from under one ear to the other. Klaas stood in a pair of timber shoes that made an awful rattle when he ran fast to catch a rabbit or scuffed slowly along to school over the brick road of his village. In summer, Klaas was dressed in a rough blue linen blouse. In winter, he wore woolen breeches as wide as coffee bags. Coffee bags? I guess I might have to drink some coffee over there and see how they make it. They were called bell trousers, and in shape were like a couple of cowbells turned upwards. These were buttoned onto a thick, warm jacket. Until he was 5 years old, Klaas was dressed like his sisters. Then, on his birthday, he had boys' clothes with 2 pockets in them, of which he was proud enough. Yes, we love pockets. Everybody's, clothes should have pockets. But, you know. What was it? No wonder he wants more cheese. He's got no meat on his bones. Mood. I didn't know the hotel at Delta H-Con made fresh salsa. Why does it sound like it was written by a theater kid? That's funny. Having pockets is how you know it's boys' clothes, right? Mood. Clothes for Wayman? Nah, you don't need pockets. You have a purse. Big purse doesn't want you. See? Yeah, big purse don't want you to have pockets. But alright, our little boy has his own pants and pockets. Klaas was a farmer's boy. He had rye bread and fresh milk for breakfast. At dinner time, beside cheese and bread, he was given a plate heaped with boiled potatoes. Into these, he first plunged a fork and then dipped each round white ball into a bowl of hot melted butter. Jesus. Taters, bread, cheese, and butter. Yeah, buddy. Potatoes. As I always say, I never met a tater I didn't like. Very quickly, then, did potato and butter disappear down the red lane. At supper, he had bread and skim milk left after the cream had been taken off with a saucer to make butter. Twice a week, the children enjoyed a bowl of bony clabber or curds. What the? Bony clabber? Bonnie clabber, excuse me. I read that wrong. Bonnie clabber. Like cheese curds? What is that? Bonnie clabber, sour milk that has thickened or curdle. Oh, so like kvark, essentially. Okay. Just dairy products. Dairy products. Yes, it does sound like a comfort meal, doesn't it? Jesus Christ! Yeah, that we're just farm boy meals. Okay, so we have the bonnie clabber or curds with a little brown sugar sprinkled on the top. But at every meal there was cheese, usually in thin slices, which the boy thought not thick enough. When Klaas went to bed, he usually fell asleep as soon as his shock of yellow hair touched the pillow. In summertime, he slept till the birds began to sing at dawn. In winter, when the bed felt warm and Jack Frost was lively, he often heard the cows talking in their way before he jumped out of his bag of straw, which served for a mattress. The Van Bommels were not rich, but everything was shining clean. He needs thick cheese, agreed. He runs all day. I mean, yeah, farm chores ain't no, they're not for sissies, let me tell you. burns off all them calories, definitely. Clabber is soured milk. That's a real word? Clabber is a... My grandmother would say that. When we didn't have buttermilk to make things, she told me to squeeze lemon juice or put like a teaspoon of vinegar into milk, and that the milk would clabber, and that would substitute as buttermilk. I thought she made that up. I thought she made that shit up. Okay. All right. All right, Gran. I'll give it to you. Clabber. Sour cream. Ah, okay. Bonnie, what was it called? Bonnie Clabber. All right. OG Martha 1. New Martha 0. Yes, Grand Martha is true because I was named after her. So technically you are not wrong. Anyway, there was always plenty to eat at the Van Bommel's house. Stacks of rye bread, a yard long and thicker than a man's arm, stood at the end in the corner of the cool stone-lined basement. The loaves of dough were put in the oven once a week. Wait, so they just made, like, loaves of dough ahead of time and then, like, shoved those bastards in the oven? Okay. I'm learning so much. It's true! It's true! I was named after my grandmother, so yes, Grand Martha is not wrong. That's how bread was made before the well, no, listen. I just thought people would make a loaf of bread, and then when they ran out, they would make a new dough, and then do a new one. So I thought, like, bread was made every few days. I didn't realize that the dough would be sitting there for a few days. Yeah, so the yeast was just having a grand old time. Okay, maybe that's why European bread's so good. Huh. Interesting. All right, baking time was a great event at the Van Bommels, and no men folks were allowed on the kitchen that day, unless they were called to help. No men, shoo! As for the milk pails and pans, filled or emptied, scrubbed or set in the sun every day to dry, and the cheeses piled up in the pantry, they seemed sometimes enough to feed a small army. You think people are rich enough to make bread every few days, not in medieval Europe? Yeah. I guess depending on how much flour they can get with their budget. It's girl dinner! Only women can have bread and cheese on this day for dinner. Let's see. But Claus always wanted more cheese. In other ways, he was a good boy, obedient at home, always ready to work on the cow farm and diligent in school. But at the table, he never had enough. Sometimes his father laughed and asked him if he had a well or a cave under his jacket. Claus had 3 younger sisters, whose names I will butcher because I am at the beginning of my Dutch journey, so please excuse me. Trientje, Anneke, and Saartje, which is Dutch for Kate, Annie, and Sally. Okay. These, their fond mother, who loved them dearly, called her Orange Blossoms. But when at dinner, Claus would keep on dipping his potatoes in the hot butter while others were all through, and his mother would laugh and call him her Buttercup. But Claus always wanted more cheese. When unusually greedy, she twitted him as a boy, worse than butter and eggs. That is, as troublesome as the yellow and white plant called toad flax is to the farmer. Very pretty, but nothing but a weed. One summer's evening, after a good scolding, which he deserved well, Claus moped and, almost crying, went to bed in bad humor. He had teased each one of his sisters to give him her bit of cheese, and this, added to his own slice, made his stomach feel as heavy as lead. Claus's bed was up in the garret. When the house was first built, one of the red tiles of the roof had been taken out, and another one, made of glass, was put in its place. In the morning, this gave the boy light to put on his clothes. At night, in fair weather, it supplied air to his room. This is a stick-up! Give me your cheese! I mean, don't most siblings fight over food? I feel like that's a very common thing. Cheese! Cheese for everyone! You get cheese, and you get cheese, and you get cheese! Oh my god. Okay. A gentle breeze was blowing from the pine woods on the sandy slope not far away, so Claus climbed up on the stool to sniff the sweet piney odors. He thought he saw lights dancing under a tree. One beam seemed to approach his roof hole and coming nearer played around the chimney. Then it passed to and fro in front of him. It seemed to whisper in his ear as it moved by. It looked very much as if 100 fireflies had united in their cold light into one lamp. Then Claus thought that the strange beams bore the shape of a lovely girl. But only he laughed at himself at the idea. Pretty soon, however, he thought the whisper became a voice. Again he laughed so heartily that he forgot his moping and the scolding that his mother had given him. In fact, his eyes twinkled with delight when the voice gave this invitation. "There's plenty of cheese. Come with us." There are cheese fairies! To make sure of it, the sleepy boy now rubbed his eyes and cocked his ears. Again, the light-bearer spoke to him. "Come." Could it be? He had heard old people tell of the ladies of the wood that whispered and warned travelers. In fact, he himself had often seen the fairy rings in the pine woods. To this, the flame lady was inviting him. Cheese fae! Right? Oh, God. Again and again, the moving cold light circled around the red tile roof, which the moon, then rising and peeping over the chimneys, seemed to turn into silver plates. As the disk rose higher in the sky, he could hardly see the moving light that had looked like a lady, but the voice, no longer a whisper at first, was now even plainer. "You're making cheese fae your new race in the D&D. Yes, do it." That is a good drag name. That would be a fantastic drag name. I'd love a cheese fae. "There's plenty of cheese. Come with us." "I'll see what it is anyhow," said Claus, as he drew on his thick woolen stockings and prepared to go downstairs and out without waking a soul. At the door he stepped into his wooden shoes. Just then the cat purred and rubbed up against his shins. He jumped, for he was scared, but looking down for a moment, he saw the 2 balls of yellow fire in her head and knew what they were. Then he sped to the pine woods and toward the fairy ring. They're gonna trap him. They're gonna trap him. It's a trap. They've come to capture you, and they're luring you with cheese. What an odd sight! At first, Claus thought it was a circle of big fireflies. Then he saw clearly that there were dozens of pretty creatures, hardly as large as dolls, but lively as crickets. They were as full of light as if lamps had wings. Hand in hand, they flitted and danced around the ring of grass, as if this was fun. A cheese trap would work on me. I mean, same. Would have got my ass, everybody. Cheese is the most effective trap. That's what we're learning in this story. Hardly had Claus got over his first surprise, then of a sudden he felt himself surrounded by the fairies. Some of the strongest among them had left the main party in the circle and come to him. He felt himself pulled by their dainty fingers. One of them, the loveliest of all, whispered in his ear, "Come, you must dance with us." Then a dozen of the pretty creatures murmured in chorus, "Plenty of cheese here, plenty of cheese here. Come, come." Mousetrap! Right? Oh my god. The Texas version of this would be queso. Yes. Yes. You have to dance to eat the cheese. There's requirements here, Pillow. Upon this, the heels of Claus seemed as light as a feather. In a moment, with both hands clasped in those of the fairies, he was dancing in high glee. It was as much fun as if he were the Kermis, with a row of boys and girls hand in hand swinging along the streets as Dutch maids and youth do during Kermis week. Okay, we gotta pause because I gotta figure out what Kermis is. Vocabulary. Kermis, festival. Outdoor fair or festival usually organized for charitable purposes. Okay. Alright, cool. Well, off he goes to dance with the fairies. Claus had not time to look hard at the fairies, for he was too full of the fun. He danced and danced all night until the sky in the east began to turn, first gray and then rosy. Then he tumbled down, tired out, and fell asleep. His head lay on the inner curve of the fairy ring, with his feet in the center. Claus felt very happy, for he had no sense of being tired, and he did not know he was asleep. He thought his fairy partners who had danced with him were now waiting on him to bring him cheeses. With a golden knife they sliced them off and fed him out of their own hands. How good it tasted! He thought now he could and would eat all the cheese he had longed for in his life. There was no mother to scold him or daddy to shake his finger at him. How delightful! But by and by he wanted to stop eating and rest a while. His jaws were tired. His stomach seemed to be loaded with cannonballs. He gasped for breath. But the fairies would not let him stop, for Dutch fairies never get tired. Flying out of the sky from the north, south, east, and west, they came bringing cheeses. They dropped down around him until the piles of the round masses threatened to first enclose him with a wall and then to overtop him. There were red balls from Edam, the pink and yellow spheres of Gouda, the gray loaf-shaped ones from the Leyden. Down through the vista of sand in the pine woods he looked, and oh, horrors! There were the tallest and strongest of the fairies rolling along the huge, round, flat cheeses from Friesland. Any of these were as big as a cartwheel and would feed a regiment. The fairies trundled the heavy discs along as if they were playing with hoops. They shouted hilariously as with a pine stick they beat them forward like boys at play. Farm cheese, factory cheese, Alkmaar cheese, and to crown all, cheese from Limburg, which Claus could never bear because of its strong odor. Soon the cakes and balls were heaped so high around him that the boy, as he looked up, felt like a frog in a well. He groaned when he thought that the high cheese walls were tottering to fall on him. Then he screamed, but the fairies thought he was making music. They, not being human, do not know how a boy feels. Oh, gunpowder! What happened? What was the gunpowder? Oh, was that Limburger? We love Gouda cheese, but poor Claus is fed up. At last, with a thick slice in one hand and a big hunk in the other, he could eat no more cheese, though the fairies, led by their queen, standing on one side or hovering over his head, still urged him to take more. At this moment, while afraid that he would burst, Claus saw the pile of cheeses as big as a house topple over. The heavy mass fell inwards upon him. With a scream of terror, he thought himself crushed as flat as a Friesland cheese. But he wasn't. Waking up and rubbing his eyes, he saw the red sun rising on the sand dunes. Birds were singing and the cocks were crowing around him, in chorus as if saluting him. Just then, also, the village clock chimed out the hour. He felt his clothes. They were wet with dew. He sat up to look around. There were no fairies, but in his mouth was a bunch of grass which he had been chewing lustily. Claus would never tell the story of his night with the fairies, nor has he yet settled the question whether they left him because the cheese house of his dream had fallen, or because daylight had come. Well, Alright. Just grass, yeah, I guess. He had to experience something. Fever dream. Maybe it was a fever dream. Who knows? Alright, Claus, the boy who wanted more cheese. Oh! Okay, so in the picture here, we can see the tiny fairy rolling a ball of cheese. Oh, and there's more fairies up here. Okay, I can see the fairies now. I couldn't quite figure out what they were. Mushroom fumes! Oh! Really? Mushroom fumes can get someone high in high enough concentration. Did not know that fact. Interesting. Got high on the cannabis. I don't know, I know it exists now in the Netherlands, but I don't know. I don't know if it did then. Interesting! Alright, well. That was the boy who wanted more cheese. Well, that was the psychedelic mushrooms. Alright. Cool. You know, I never made Sayajima eat one of the toxic mushrooms in Yakuza. I wonder if he would have gotten high or if he would have gotten sick. Who knows? Who knows? Alright. So, next is... That is incorrect. Okay. Next, I remember the Entangled Mermaid that Elliot recommended. And it's right here. So, let's change our title here. The Entangled Mermaid. Did I spell entangled correctly? I think I did. And wasn't the Little Mermaid, wasn't Hans Christian Andersen Dutch? Hold on. Hans Christian yeah, oh, he was Danish. He was from Denmark. My bad. That's the wrong D. Well, interesting. So, The Little Mermaid was a Danish fairy tale. But, I wonder if he could have found some inspiration with this particular, but we don't know the story of the mermaid. But what if we just had a mermaid special? Oh yes, I know the original fairy tale was much darker. I remember reading it as a child and being very sad. So, let me see if I can find a good little illustration for this. Let me see. But no, we could do a whole mermaid special, because there's mermaid stories and mermaid folklore all around the world. Everybody has mermaids. Let's see. That doesn't seem correct. These illustrations are not... These are all very modern. They are not what I'm looking for! Oh, that's kind of funny. Huh. Oh, it's not what I meant to click on! It's fine. Yeah, I'm going for storybook vibes. Give me... Oh, shoot. Oh, I messed it up. Let's go with this one. Yoink. controversial question. Do mermaids... I don't know. I don't usually like to think about that. I guess that is a good question. I wouldn't know. But I feel like if it was the bottom half of the fish, maybe, I don't know. See, now I'm thinking about stuff that I don't want to think about. Undine. Undine. I think so. Let me see. Where was that from? Right, because we looked at that because Rusalka was inspired by Undine, and then Little Mermaid was inspired by Rusalka. So everybody's kind of taking ideas from each other. So, mixing Little Mermaid with Rapunzel. Yeah, she's got some long hair, doesn't she? Many people from these stories want to... Yeah! Yeah, I mean... I feel like it's kind of human nature. Like the monster fuckers do have an argument. Right. Yeah, The Little Mermaid was 1837. But there's been mermaid folklore for like thousands of years. So, they do have nice titties. You're funny. All right, well, let's look at the story of the entangled mermaid. So, let's see... Let's see what happens, and let's see if it's... God damn it, we had this conversation last night. The entire chat are titty people. Y'all are crazy. All right, here we go. The Entangled Mermaid. Long ago, in Dutch fairyland, there lived a young mermaid who was very proud of her good looks. She was one of a family of mer or lake folks dwelling not far from the sea. Her home was a great pool of water that was half salt and half fresh, for it lay around an island near the mouth of a river. Part of the day, when the sea tides were out, she splashed and played, dived and swam in the soft water of the inland current. When the ocean heaved and the salt water rushed in, the mermaid floated and frolicked and paddled to her heart's content. Her father was a gray-bearded merryman and very proud of his handsome daughter. He owned an island near the river mouth where the young mermaids held their picnics and parties and received the visits of young merrymen. Is merryman, is that mermen? Merryman? Is that what you call male types, I guess? Boop! Hello, Lily. Welcome. It sounds like a lesbian stories. No, merryman spelled M-E-R-R-Y-M-E-N. That's what it says. Handsome daughter is so gender, right? I too am a handsome daughter, thank you. Yes, a handsome gentle lady. Very much so. Honestly, I love that. Like, the gender binary used to... A, it used to not exist, and B, it used to be, like, super lax. And I feel like, you know, the closer we get to contemporary times, the stricter it's gotten, which sucks! But anyway. It's common in mermaid folklore to lure in men. Yes, it is! So we'll see if that happens. But honestly, I would love to be a handsome mermaid daughter hanging out and having picnics and parties. Ariel and her merry men! Honestly! That would be a fun story. I would watch that. I bet that's what she calls all the knights on land after she marries the prince. And she's like, oh, it's your merry men! And they're like, we're knights. And she's like, oh, you're so cute. Carry on. Anyway, let's get back to it. Her mothers and two aunts were merwomen. All of these were sober folks and attended to the business which occupies all well-brought-up mermaids and merrymen. This was to keep their pool clean and nice. No frogs, toads, or eels were allowed near, but in the work of daily house cleaning, the storks and mermaids were great friends. All water creatures that were not thought to be polite or well-behaved were expected to keep away. Even some silly birds, such as loons and plovers, and all screaming and fighting creatures with wings, were warned off the premises because they were not wanted. Well, damn, that takes Scuttle out of the equation. Seagulls, goodbye. Knuckles the Echidna feminist. Damn, Knuckles! Honestly, I know next to nothing about Sonic. I watched the Sonic movie, and I know about Sonic through osmosis, but that's about it. Okay, so they didn't like loud, scrappy birds. This family of merry folks was liked to have a nice quiet time by themselves, without any rude folks on legs or with wings or fins from the outside. Indeed, they wished to make their pool a model for all respectable mermaids and merrymen for 10 leagues around. It was very funny to see the old daddy merryman with a switch made of reeds, shooing off the saucy birds, such as the sandpipers and screeching gulls. For the bullfrogs, too big for the storks to swallow, and for impudent fishes, he had a whip made of seaweed. Sonic Boom? Is that a game, or is that a movie? I do not know. Of course, all mermaids in good society were welcome, but young mermen were allowed to call only once a month during the week when the moon was full. Then the evenings were usually clear, so that when the party broke up, the mermen could see their way in the moonlight to swim home safely with their mermaid friends. For there were sea monsters that loved to plague the merfolk, and even threatened to eat them up. The mermaids, dear creatures, had to be escorted home, but they felt safe, for their merman brothers and daddies were so fierce that, except sharks, even the larger fish, such as porpoises and dolphins, were afraid to come near them. The game is utter garbage. Okay. Alright. One day, Daddy and the mother left to visit some relatives near the island of Urk. They were to be gone several days. Meanwhile, their daughter was to have a party, her aunts being the chaperones. The mermaids usually held their picnics on an island in the midst of a pool. Here they would sit and sun themselves. They talked about the fashions and the prettiest way to dress their hair. Each one had a pocket mirror, but where they kept these while swimming, no mortal ever found out. Tail pocket confirmed! They made wreaths of bright-colored seaweed, orange and black, blue, gray, and red, and wore them on their brows like coronets. Okay. Or they twined them, along with sea berries and bubble blossoms, among their tresses. Sometimes they made girdles of the strongest and knotted them around their waists. Every once in a while they chose a queen of beauty for their ruler. Then each of the others pretended to be a princess. Their games and sports often lasted all day, and they were very happy. Swimming out in the salt water, the mermaids would go in quest of pearls, coral, ambergris, and other pretty things. These they would bring to their queen, or with them richly adorn themselves. Thus the mermaid queen and her maidens made a court of beauty that was famed wherever mermaids and merrymen lived. They often talked about human maids. "How funny it must be to wear clothes," said one. "Are they cold that they have to keep warm?" It was a little chit of a mermaid whose flippers had hardly begun to grow into hands that asked this question. "How can they swim with petticoats on?" asked another. "My brother heard that real men wear wooden shoes. These must bother them when on water to have their feet floating," said a third, whose name was Silver Scales. "What a pity they don't have flukes like us." And then she looked at her own glistening scaly coat in admiration. No, a little chit. Chit, C-H-I-T, chit. No, chit is like, it's like, how do you describe it? Like like a little sprout, like a little young person, technically. Clothes are for many reasons, the main reasons being warmth, but evolved over time. True. Very true. Let's see. I can hardly believe it, said a mermaid that was very proud of her fine figure and slender waist. Their girls can't be half as pretty as we are. Well, I should like to be a real woman for a while just to try it and see how it feels to walk on legs, said another rather demurely, as if afraid the other mermaids might not like her remark. They didn't. Out sounded a lusty chorus. No, no, horrible. What an idea. Who wouldn't be a mermaid? Why, I've heard, cried one, that real women have to work, wash their husbands' clothes, milk cows, dig potatoes, scrub floors, and take care of calves. Who would want to be a woman? Not I. I mean, they're not wrong. The expression chit-chat comes from it. Okay. Like script? Yeah, that could work. She was sneering at the idea that a creature in petticoats could ever look lovelier than one in shining scales. Besides, said she, think of their big noses, and I'm told, too, that girls have even to wear hairpins. At this, the very thought that anyone should have to bind up their tresses, there was such a shock of disgust with some, while others clapped their hands, partly in envy and partly in glee. But the funniest things the mermaids heard of were gloves, and they laughed heartily over such things as covers for fingers. Just for fun, one of the mermaids used to draw some bag-like seaweed over her hands to see how such things looked. Taking potatoes? Well, I guess that was like a standard thing that they would do at that point. Yeah, they're complaining because they don't know. One day, while sunning themselves in the grass on the island, one of their number found a bush on which foxgloves grew. Plucking these, she covered each one of her fingers with a red flower. Then, flopping over to the other girls, she held up her gloved hands. Half in fright and half in envy, they heard her story. After listening, the party was about to break up when suddenly a young merman splashed into view. The tide was running out and the stream low, so he had to work hard to get through the fresh water of the river and to the island. His eyes dropped salt water as if he were crying. He looked tired while puffing and blowing, and he could hardly get his breath. The queen of the mermaids asked him what he meant by coming among her maids at such an hour and in such a condition. At this, the bashful merman began to blubber. Some of the mergirls put hands over their mouths to hide their laughing, while they winked at each other, and their eyes showed how they enjoyed the fun. To have a merman among them at that hour in broad daylight and crying was too much for dignity. Hello, Nara. Welcome, friend. Glad to have you here. Oh yeah, and they know nothing. Absolutely jack shit. All right. Let's see what the man has to say for himself. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo, and the merman still wept saltwater tears as he tried to catch his breath. At least he talked sensibly. He warned the queen that a party of horrid men in wooden shoes with pickaxes, spades, and pumps were coming to drain the swamp and pump out the pool. He had heard that they would make the river a canal and build a dike that should keep out the ocean. Alas, alas, cried one mermaid, wringing her hands. Where shall we go when our pool is destroyed? We can't live in the ocean all the time. Then she wept copiously. The salt-water tears fell from her great round eyes in big drops. Hush, cried the queen. I don't believe the merman's story. He only tells it to frighten us. It's just like him. In fact, The queen suspected that the merman's story was all a sham and that he had come among her maids with a set purpose to run off with silver scales. She was one of the prettiest mermaids in the company, but very young, vain, and frivolous. It was no secret that she and the merman were in love and wanted to get married. So the queen, without even thanking him, dismissed the swimming messenger. After dinner, the company broke up and the queen retired to her cave to take a long nap. She was quite tired after entertaining so much company. Besides, since Daddy and Mother were away, there were no beaux to entertain. Since it was a dark night and no moon shining on the water, why need she get up early in the morning? So the mermaid queen slept much longer than ever before. Indeed, it was not till near sunset the next day that she awoke. Taking her comb and mirror in hand, she started to swim and splash in the pool in order to smooth out her tresses and get ready for supper. But oh, what a change from the day before! What was the matter? All around her, things looked different. The water had fallen low and the pool was nearly empty. The river, instead of flowing, was as quiet as a pond. Horrors! When she swam forward, what should she see but a dike and fences? An army of horrid men had come when she was asleep and built a dam. They had fenced round the swamp and were actually beginning to dig sluices to drain the land. Some were at work building a windmill to help in pumping out the water. The 24-hour nap! Yeah, no, she really said, I'm sleepy, big sleepy. The missile is EB. In the ocean, no one could see you cry. Yeah, for real. Let's see. The first thing she knew, she had bumped her pretty nose against the dam. She thought of at once escaping over the logs and into the sea. When she tried to clamber over the top and get through to the fence, her hair got so entangled between the bars that she had to throw away her comb and mirror to try and untangle her tresses. The more she tried, the worse became the tangle. Soon her long hair was all twisted up in the timber. In vain were her struggles to escape. She was ready to die with fright when she saw 4 horrid men rush up to seize her. She attempted to waddle away, but her long hair held her to the post and rails. Her modesty was so dreadfully shocked that she fainted away. When she came to herself, she found she was in a big, long tub. A crowd of curious little girls and boys were looking at her, for she was on show as a great curiosity. They were bound to see her and get their money's worth in looking, for they had paid a stiver, 2 cents, admission to the show. Again, before all these eyes, her modesty was so shocked that she gave one groan, flopped over, and died in the tub. Woe to the poor father and mother at Urk. They came back to find their old home gone. Unable to get into it, they swam out to sea, never stopping till they reached Spitzbergen. What became of the body of the mermaid queen? Learned men came from Leyden to examine what was now only a specimen, and to see how mermaids were made up. Then her skin was stuffed and glass eyes put in, where her shining orbs had been. After this, her body was stuffed and mounted in the museum, that is, set up above a glass case, and resting upon iron rods. Artists came to Leyden to make pictures of her, and no fewer than 9 noblemen copied her pretty form and features into their coat of arms. Instead of the mermaid's pool is now a cheese farm of 50 cows, a fine house and a barn, and a family of pink-cheeked, yellow-haired children who walk and play in wooden shoes. So this particular mermaid, all because of her entanglement in the fence, was more famous when stuffed than when living, while all her young friends and older relatives were forgotten. Well, damn, that's kind of sad. She really died of embarrassment. Yeah, she kind of did. Shit. Believe you're vulnerable men, folks. Yeah, I guess so. Evolves like Eevee. Did I rhyme it right? I guess so. Talk shit on the very things that got her killed. I wonder why she wouldn't believe him. But it is kind of sad Sad to have your home destroyed and then being put on display and dying? Nani? Right? Very much so. What's the moral of the story? I don't know. Thank you, Elliot, for the head pats. Much appreciated. I don't know. I'd rather not be famous. Yeah. Yeah, if you're being put on, like that. Not an excuse to dismiss a legitimate threat. I guess so. Give me a second. I must blow my nose for a minute. I'm telling you, man, springtime is pretty, but boy, my nose. Ooh, the springtime allergies. There they go. I wonder if I'll have allergies in the Netherlands or not. That's a good question. I don't know what the allergies are like over there. I have to admit, I don't pay attention to the people who foretell the end of the world. You know, that's kind of true. I wonder. Yeah, the pollen's insane. Yeah, my car, I was going to get it washed because it was covered in pollen, but then it rained the other day. Although, I don't know. Should I get it washed before I leave? So glad I have no seasonal allergies. Oh, you lucky bitch. Lucky you then, damn. Alright, hang on. Elita gave me some things to check out, so let me look them up. The Cludde and the Bullebak. Cludde. Ooh, that's cool. Bullebak. There's a whole Dutch folklore wikia? What? Dutch, there's a whole... Am I going into a haunted place without knowing? Sheesh. Yeah, I stay away from the fearmongers too, honestly. Like, I want to be aware of things, but like, I don't want to be a doomsday person, you know what I mean? There's nothing you can do about the world ending. So what reason is there to listen? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Where my charms? Okay. Yes. I'll have to be aware. I have to God, they have haunted locations, border ghosts, child terrors, hellhounds, witches, dragons, and serpents. Okay, shit. That's wild. All right. Yeah, man, I'll have to get on my crystals and shit. Entangled Mermaid getting us philosophical. I mean, isn't that the whole point of folk tales? I mean, you know, they're teaching children lessons, but I guess they're teaching us lessons too. Like, I mean, I guess the moral of the story is, like, you know, pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to others. You know, or else you'll end up stuffed and in a museum. End up the creek without a paddle, I guess. Goodness. Alright, well, let's look at this thing. Take a break from stories for a second. And then we'll get into... What is that? Alright, there's art. Let me open up the image. We're gonna talk. Thank you for the hydrate. I will do that momentarily. We're gonna talk about the Cludde. Moral of the story is to heed any threats. Better to be prepared and wrong than unprepared and dead. True. Very true. Okay. Here is the next picture. The Cluda. It's a wolf with bat wings. I'm kind of into it. I'm not gonna lie. I will not lie to you. Alright, there he is. Look at him! Super cool! What a guy! I don't know what he does, but here we go. The Cluda! Also known as the Kleda, Clara, Klura, Vaterkleda. Alright. It lives at the edge of civilization and in forests. His wings are too small to oh. You know, I hadn't thought of that. What does he do with them? That's so funny. Okay, so this is like, we're kind of edging into Belgium also with this guy. In East Flanders, but mostly in parts of Belgium, people feared the nocturnal Cluda, shouting monster. Okay. People know him as a horrifying tormentor. Some people have described the Cluda as a furry. Yes? Yes? I mean, they're not wrong. Maybe he's like a bee. Could be. Buzz, buzz. Illustration looks like something from World of Darkness. I don't know World of Darkness. That's a new one for me. Okay, hang on. So, the screaming monster. Shouting monster? Let's see. So they've described him as a furry. Great. Awesome. Supposedly a big dog that walks on its hind legs with heavy candy bracelets. I feel like this page is trolling me. This is trolling me. Candy bracelets? Kandee. Who edited this? I mean, it's a wikia, so couldn't anybody? It sounds like a troll, right? I'm like, what? Hold on, let me reverse image search this bitch. What? Bear claws, a black maw, green glistening scales on the bat wings on his back, and crimson colored eyes. Yeah, I think somebody came into this and edited it to add because the rest of this seems pretty legit, but they added candy bracelets and furries. Somebody came over here and fucked around with something. All right. He's a child terror and pulls children into the water. The Cluda can move at immeasurable speeds and is said to spawn from the cremated bodies of witches and wizards. Some say if one were to kill the Cluda, 7 more would crawl from its corpse. He likes to play dangerous games such as jumping upon unsuspecting passerby and becoming increasingly heavy. The monster can sometimes be found in the reeds, under bridges, and inside of hollow trees. Should one encounter the beast, their best hope is that their feet are faster than the Cluda's claws. Throwing a handkerchief could save their life. How? Just like with the werewolf, this fiend has no other choice but to rip it apart carefully, fiber by fiber. What note is that? Oh. Huh. Some say the demon used to... okay, blah, 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 blah. Cluda has the ability to shapeshift into a wide assortment of animals, such as ravens, snakes, cats, frogs, bats, and even the trees that grow high above the clouds. Other times, he would show up looking like a human being. Anything was possible, really. Sometimes he'd appear as a meager horse and took people for a ride, only to shake them off in a pond somewhere. Others believed him to be a werewolf, a demon, or even the Archangel Michael himself. There's people who believe... okay. Interesting. Hold on, let me find another... Blah, 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 blah. A wolf from the cremated bodies of witches. Okay, I think I found a better article. It is generally described as a big dog that walks on its hind legs with heavy chains, at least one around his ankle. So he does have bear claws and green scales on his bat wings and crimson-colored bulging eyes. Okay. Can shapeshift. I never heard that werewolves had to rip apart handkerchiefs fiber by fiber. Oh, thank you, Henry. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time. Good night. Good night, good night. John's acting pretty weird today, huh? Yeah, for real. What? And it said it was like, yeah, the cremated bodies. How does this thing spawn from cremated bodies? Hold on. Let me see. The demon dog of Belgium. All right. Along the desolate roads of Belgium, there is said to lurk a beast that hunts those traveling at night. The only thing you'll hear before it leaps out from the dark is the rattling chains that once kept it at bay. I blame the church. All right. It's a prison escapee furry, I guess, with the chains. How did it escape from prison? We gotta find out. I gotta find out how it escaped from prison. Oh, okay. Here's a legend. All right, all right. Finally, we're getting some context. In the mid-18th century, just outside of a forest, near the small village of Ternat, Belgium, stood a small, broken-down cottage. No one knew where it came from or how long it had stood, but inside lived a wretched old woman who was said to be as hideous as the devil. Fucking Inuyasha AU! Demon dog of Belgium! I love that. Yes, Inuyasha is going into Europe for his next adventure. Let's see. The villagers of Ternat knew the woman was a witch who called upon the spirits of hell at night, inviting them to stay in her cottage. Many believed they had something to... Many believed they had to do something to drive her away, as it was only a matter of time before the evil she called upon would infect Ternat. The men of Ternat wished to burn the witch to rid her of their lands, but none would dare do so. Finally, one night, a thunderstorm, unlike any of the villagers had ever seen, struck Ternat. A stray lightning bolt hit the witch's cottage, burning it and her to the ground. 3 days later, a group from the village went to inspect the charred rubble and found her blackened corpse, yet they still feared moving her. A wealthy landowner who wished to purchase the property sent over his most faithful and bravest servants with shovels and pitchforks to move and bury the corpse. The moment one of the servants touched the corpse with their tools, the ground shook and the sky resounded with a thunderous crack. The burnt corpse split open and a small ash-covered man climbed out. Within moments, he grew to an astonishing height, his body contorted, and his screams turned to growls. His face extended into a wolf-like snout, his legs curved and bent into that of a dog, and claws grew on his feet and hands. This was the Kludde. The handkerchief thing must be one of those old rules for folklore creatures. True. Wind scar! Oh boy. Yeah, no, I would not stay for that. I would not stay to see the whole thing. I would be gone. No, thank you. None for me. Oh boy, okay. With the beast now fully formed in front of them, the servants fainted as the Kludde ran off in search of clothes. Why do you need clothes, dude? Why? I don't understand. Incidentally, this is where the monster got its name, as it ran off yelling for kludden, which translates to cloths. Over the time, the name has morphed into Cluda, but it's sometimes referred to as the Cluden or Cluden. When the servants awoke, the witch's corpse had become a pool of black sludge. Returning back to town, the belief was the cursed soul of the witch had given birth to the Cluda in order to wreak havoc across the land. A group was quickly rounded up to hunt the Cluda, but this turned out more challenging than they thought, as they learned the Cluda was a shapeshifter. Reportedly, several hunters witnessed it shapeshifting into a large bird that was on fire and dragging a long chain. Others saw it turn into a white or red-haired dog, a small white rabbit, a starving horse, a stallion, a pig, and even a woman. He needs to be fashionable. Okay, he needs clothes so he doesn't die of embarrassment like the mermaid. All right. These Dutch cryptids, the Dutch monsters are like... They're a little self-conscious. They're not quite as confident and brazen as North American cryptids, which is kind of funny. All right. Still, the hunters persisted in chasing the Cluda through the forest over the course of several weeks. Meanwhile, the Cluda was reportedly making butter and milk rancid and rendering cows and horses infertile just simply by being in the area. I love that some of these folk tales, like, the reason these people think demons are up in their business, they're like, my milk and butter have gone rancid. It's a demon's fault. It's not the lack of refrigeration. It's not keeping it out for too long. No, it's a demon. It's a demon. It's the demon's fault that my milk has gone bad. Oh, that's so funny. Cows and horses are infertile not because of genetics. No, it's a demon. Yes, its mere presence caused death. Oh, man. I am very glad that I am alive in an age of science and fact-checking. I really... Right before science, everything is a demon's fault, right? I do love me some science. Let's see. There were claims the Cluda wasn't as dangerous as it appears to be, as it simply wandered around scaring drunkards and laughing at their screams. Others told of more malevolent acts, such as killing a stable of horses or kidnapping and defiling young women who were walking through the forest. Hate that. Don't want to believe that. The hunters eventually caught up to the Cluda, but found all their weapons were ineffective. Arrows and pitchforks seemingly passed directly through the beast as it laughed at the attempts. One man tried to grab the Cluda with his bare hands and said it was as if he was swiping at smoke. Another man was somehow able to pin the Cluda to a wall, but the unbothered beast simply shot fire into his eyes, killing him. Okay. Bare hands, womp womp. The Cluda once again escaped, and to this day, many have claimed to see it or one of its disguises. It's said to haunt the lonely roads, looking for those traveling alone. If you're lucky, it might just play a prank on you, while others are never heard from again. Ooh, spooky. Me trying to summon a demon. Oh no, I put dairy out and I don't have a fridge. What will I do? What would you do with the demon? My neighbor was banging my wife behind my back. It must be a demon's fault. Oh my god. Really? Butterflies are sent by witches to steal or foul your... Really? They believe that about butterflies? I mean, they're not my favorite thing in the world, but that's funny. Some evangelicals still believe in spiritual warfare and denounce everything they think is demonic. Yeah. That's kind of sad. Y'all ain't heard of science before. You plead the fifth on that question. Oh, you're funny. That's hilarious. Evangelicals are far-fetched in a lot of ways. I agree. Okay, interesting. They have some history of the people who talk about him. All right. Okay. Ooh, myths, mysteries, and monsters. Ooh. This is an interesting little website. Alright. Cool. Alright, well that was the Clutter. Blaming demons is the guy falling off his bike meme. Yes. I could see that. Okay. The Bullabuk. Alright, since this wiki proved to be slightly, oh. Wait! There's a website called Visiting the Dutch Countryside. Dutch Folklore. The Scary Dutch Water Creature Bullabuk. Okay. Okay, well let's hear from a Dutch person. Hang on a second. Yeah, let's get some slightly better moderated shit. Bullabuk. Oops. Okay. Alright, there's that. Is there a picture? No. But it looks like it's another child terror. Oh, they're like frogs. Maybe. Kind of. Hang on. That. But wait, these depictions are all different. Froggert. Did you hear of... No, Velcro's not here. That could be my partner messing around with them. Their favorite pastime is annoying the cats. Wait. That? Okay. That was something in Dutch, but... Why am I getting results for Fungus the Boogeyman? No, we don't want Fungus the Boogeyman. We want the Bullabuk. I don't know. This one looks pretty fucking funny. Hang on. Where is this? That's okay. We gotta we gotta use the one from the Dutch website, because it's honestly, I don't know who drew this, but it's pretty funny. We're gonna do it. Okay. There he is! Boy, look at him! Ugh. Silly. Silliness. And then there's the terrified children. There he is. There he goes. De Bullabuk in Sloot. Do I know what that means? No. Westfriese Kinderolympies. There you go. I love him. I love him too. Look at him go. In Greek mythology, yeah, they are many depictions. Fungus the Boogeyman sounds like a villain from a failed video. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? A frog with a small... What? What? Alita, are you typing in Dutch? What is this? De Bullabuk in... What does that mean? Translate. Ah, the bully in the ditch. Sloot is a ditch. Okay. Interesting. Alright, let's go with it. Okay, the Bullabuk. The scary Dutch water creature. Here we go. The author of this says, I love Dutch folklore and the story of Bullabuk hits very close to home as it's a common one in my region. It's a scary water creature you do not want to see or hear. It's a bad sound. Alright, you will learn about one of the most known sagas in the Netherlands and where it's found. It's a copy pasta in Middle English? Okay, that's why it looked somewhat legible to me. Ah! A frog is a small beast with 4 legs. Something in the water and on land. Okay, interesting. Okay, one of the most famous Dutch sagas is the Bullebak. This water creature is found in lakes, rivers, and canals, and especially scares children. It is said that he drags kids that come too close to the water by their legs into the canal, lake, or river and will drown them. It's a water creature that scared children and is mostly seen in the provinces of Noord-Holland, Zuid-Holland, Gelderland, Overijssel, and Drenthe. The Bullebak has no fixed physical characteristics, but he is terrifying. That's why the depictions were all different. Nobody can agree. Alright, some say he is a green creature with yellow eyes and big teeth. I mean, that seems to be what's happening in this photo. One of the regions where the Bullebak is talked about a lot is West Friesland, found in the Noord-Holland region, and where I'm from. My parents were always taught about the Bullebak. It is a creature that makes sure that kids stay away from the water because many kids could not swim back in the day and would drown if they fell in. Even though it's very common nowadays, that wasn't the case 50 years ago. The Bullebak is very common in the Dutch West Frisian culture and can be found in books, stories, and in the dialect. Interesting. Ooh. And here's a little story. It's not my fault I'm muddy. The Bullebak pulled me into the sloot. I'll keep that for my travels. The Bullebak has existed for centuries, and even in the 17th century, a sluice in Amsterdam was connected to the Bullebak. It's not entirely surprising, as many people drowned in that time in Amsterdam. This story says the Bullebak was a terrifying water ghost that lived in deep eddies and was always on the lookout to grab the legs of a careless person who ventured too close to the edge and dragged this person into the depths. The Bullebak Slough was said to have been a hiding place for the, well, yeah, I guess that's why they named it that. In the dark evening, people could hear him roar and hear the water rustling. People have seen his head as he was looking out over the lock gate with fiery eyes. This is not a creature that you want to meet. Other people say he was large, green, slimy, and see-through. But the fiery eyes are always returning, as well as the roaring. He prefers to take children into the dark, deep water. Who is Eddie and why is he deep? Okay, alright, puns. Fun fact, there was even a famous play from 1618 that includes the word Bullebak. They compared a scary non-human figure with a human in this play. That's one of the reasons why Bullebak in the Dutch language is still used to talk about an unpleasant and intimidating person. Ow! That's a spicy insult. You're unpleasant and as ugly as this thing. Alright. Well then. Well then. Water creature who will have you drowned. Very common in spooky, scary stuff. Adding that to my insult vocabulary. Go for it. Go nuts. Okay, is there anything else about this thing? Well, there's a lot of, when I look on Google, there's lots of, like, dictionary entries. So I guess it really is still used as an insult. Okay. Damn. Interesting. Okay, there was a third creature you had suggested, Alita. What was it called? I'm gonna unpin this. Yeah, what was your third creature so that I may look it up? Otherwise, we have more silly stories. Bullabox sounds like a good insult. Hey there, Riri! What's up, friend? Happy to have you here. If you know of any Dutch, like, folklore, mythology, or weird, spooky little guys. We've already talked about cheese fae, mermaids, wolf Batman, and, this guy. So, there's room for more. Blauwe Garrett. I wonder if that's, like, blue something. Blauwe Garrett. The Dutch folk tale of Blauwe... Damn! There's, like, videos and shit on this. There's a... Oh, it brings me to Dutch Wikipedia. Damn! This one's popular. Okay. Alright, let me find a picture of him. And yes, he is blue, so I guess blauwe is how you would say blue. I haven't gotten to colors in Duolingo yet. Blauwe Garrett. There we go. That's what we're looking at. Give me images. Oh. Oh. Hello? There's even a children's book. What? What? What is that? What? I am so... Because, okay, it's either, like, goofy children's illustration, or it's, like, horrifying watercolor art. I don't know. What do y'all think? Should we go with the horrifying watercolor art, or do we go with the goofy children's illustration? I don't know. That's a lot. There's a Blauwe Garrett Productions. Somebody named their cow Blauwe Garrett. Alright, well let's hold on. Let's get this guy. This is, yeah, it's kind of terrifying, but alright. Oops. Okay, hang on. Gotta fix it. Like, isn't that kind of scary? Like, he's over here trying to take somebody's head off. I don't think I like that. How is this thing, like, the subject of a children's book? He doesn't seem like a goofy little dude to me. It does look like yokai art, doesn't it? Interesting. Well, okay, let's see more about this guy. The folktale of Blauwe Garrett. Alright, the Netherlands is home to an unbelievable amount of legends, myths, and folktales. This is the story of Blauwe Garrett. Translates to Blue Garrett. Is Garrett just a name? Me and who? I mean, like, do what you want. I mean, your kinks are your kinks, my guy. Alright, okie dokie. There are several stories about Blauwe Garrett, or, okay, in the local dialect. Blauwe Garrett is said to joke around and is called a plaaggeest, or tease ghost. He also takes matters into his own hands when there's any injustice. Okay. There are tons of different folk tales around Blauwe Garrett in Gelderland, and I will tell you a few. Alright, come on, girl, tell us some folk tales. Alright. Not many people tend to know Blauwe Garrett anymore. Even people from the Velve region often aren't aware of his existence, which is a true shame. Blauvageret is said to be an old Germanic forest spirit that dances like a blue light through the forest of Veluwe. I am trying my best. That's a sick headlock. It's the Dutch version of Garrett? I've never heard of Garrett before. Interesting. Things for children used to be mostly on... Yeah, that's true. That's true, you're right. Okay, you're right. Let's see. So, he's said to be an old Germanic forest spirit that dances like a blue light through the forests of the Veluwe. He doesn't have any power between the houses of people, but he thrives in loneliness and darkness. People say he is an ape-like being. Blauvageret is not a bad spirit. He likes to tease and help people, as well as get justice. Because he also teases people, he is named a tease ghost. Okay, and here are a couple of stories about our friend Garrett. Injustice from a Miller. The dark clouds are covering the sky after a hot and humid day. That's a bad sign. The ghost of Blauvageret rages through the sky to change some unjust. Not everyone believed in Blauvageret, and one of those that didn't believe in Garrett was a miller from the Doesburger Molen in the town of Ada. The miller wasn't scared of Blauvageret. He knew the stories, but nothing ever happened to him. The miller was working and sold packs of flour. For every pack he sold, the miller was allowed to take 1 scoop for himself as his wage. But the miller got greedy and took more than he deserved, and he especially took way more flour from poor farmers. What an asshole! After a humid day, lightning was on its way. The sky turned black, which even scared the miller. Lightning hit the traditional Dutch windmill, and the miller was hit by the ghost of Blauvageret just as he was trying to take a second scoop out of the flour bag. His hands were stiff, and he couldn't move anymore. That's when the miller regretted his actions. The regret made him slowly be able to move again, and that's when he knew Blauvagaret's spirit lives on. Okay. So maybe this guy he's got in a headlock is actually somebody who did something unjust. And he's just setting... He's like cryptid Robin Hood. And I kind of love that. Good for you, Garrett. A miller. Okay, this is another miller. A miller was taking a bigger portion of the flour than was allowed. That's when his shovel became so incredibly heavy, so heavy, that he couldn't handle the shovel anymore. That was the work of Blauvageret. The miller tried to get his shovel out of the bag for more than an hour. He just couldn't do it. That's when he heard a chuckle and the sound of someone walking away. The miller didn't see anything. Only that's when he was able to freely move the shovel in his hand again. Ooh, okay, we got some drunk people. What would Garrett do to drunk people? Sometimes Blauvageret would climb onto heavy wagons. He was especially targeting the drivers who had a little too much to drink. He would sit invisible for hours on the wagons, which would stop the cart from moving. It couldn't move for hours at all. Damn! Blauvageret against drunk driving. Okay, we stand Blauvageret. This is a Blauvageret stan account. I love that. Millers are like some of the most unpopular people back in the Middle Ages. Interesting. Didn't know about that. Love that. I mean, if they were being assholes, sure. Okay, next one. The Bad Squire. Okay, what did the squire do? It is said that the Squire of Boesloe returned from his hunt on a winter evening empty-handed. But he wasn't moaning around as he saw his next prey, even more expensive than hares and partridges. Oh, gross. Oh, this guy. He saw Hannah walking around. Hannah was the 17-year-old daughter of a poor widow who rented land from the squire. Hannah was looking for firewood, eventually found it, and was trying to walk back home. That's when the squire grabbed her, lifted her on his horse, and quickly drove away. While poor Hana was praying and begging for him to let her go, he wanted nothing more than to use this black-haired girl on a lonely winter evening. Then Hana screams and shouts, "There is Blauvageret! Take me back to my mom, squire, now!" The squire only laughed and didn't believe her, nor did he believe in Blauvageret. He said shadows are simply shadows. People who think don't take that into account. But suddenly, his horse stopped and was foaming at the mouth. The horse could not take any step. Blauvageret sat on top of the neck of the horse and pushed his entire weight on the poor animal. Usually, Blauvageret was invisible or a shadow, but now the squire and Hana could see him. They saw him looking threatening with fiery rolling eyes and a fluttering blue garment that lit up. The squire, unsurprisingly, still had a big ego and thought that he could handle Blauvageret. He used his weapon to stab Garrett, but all he was stabbing was air. Blauvageret was untouchable. That's when the squire jumped off his horse and tried to run on foot. Garrett wouldn't be Garrett if he didn't let the squire get away so easily. Blauvageret jumped on the back of... so it's this story. That's where this image comes from. Okay, Blauvageret jumped on the back of the squire, who couldn't take another step anymore. That's when the squire gifted Hana his horse, and he said that she should go to the pastor of Gytel, who had a book with which he could do magic. Hana drove as quickly as she could on the horse to her mother's shack on the heather fields. Her mother was at a loss for words and was waiting for her daughter. She thought the sound of hooves was of the Dodenpard, or death horse, which couldn't mean anything good. Luckily, it was Hana on the horse of the squire, arriving safe and sound back home. They forgot to go get the pastor of Gytel to free the squire from Blauvageret. Good! Only in the morning did Blauvageret let go of the squire, who then stumbled, terrified and sweaty, back to Buzlu. In the meantime, Hana brought the horse back to the stable and was gifted 2 hands filled with gold, which lifted the family out of poverty. Damn. Where's Blauvageret when we need him? There's a lots of people who could use that help. Next, we have exhausted hikers. Okay. At sparsely populated places and abandoned areas, Blauvageret was more than happy to make it a bit more difficult for hikers in the area. He would jump onto their shoulders, making himself heavier and heavier with each step they took. The hikers would be exhausted by the time they reached more populous areas. Okay, that's just him fucking around. Oh. Unfinished work. When people from the Veluva region were in trouble, Blauvageret lent a helping hand, without them knowing. If the miller wasn't able to grind his grain, then Blauvageret did it for him in the middle of the night. When a farmer wasn't able to get all his harvest inside on time, Blauvageret simply finished it at night. It's kind of like Elves and the Shoemaker thing. Well, okay, Blauvageret. I love that. We stan Blauvageret. We love him. He is good. Alright. Well, thank you, Elita, for that suggestion. Found a new funky little dude to stan. Alright, next. Next we have other stories. Okay, I've got a couple here, and tell me which one you would prefer. We have the Ice King and his wonderful grandchild, or we have the Kabouters and the Bells. And Kabouters are like small little creatures. So tell me if you... We'll probably read both. But let me know which one you want to hear first. Do you want to hear about the Ice King? Or do you want to hear about the little creatures and the bells? The kabouters? Okay, let's go with the kabouters. The kabouters and the bells. Oops. Let's see. The kabouters and the bells. There we go. Let me get the right photo or illustration. Blink. There they are! Small creatures. Okay, the kabouters and the bells. They're singing! We'll have to see what they're singing about. Okay, here we go. When the young Queen Wilhelmina visited Brabant and Limburg, they amused her with pageants and plays, in which the little fellows, called kabouters and in Dutch and kobolds in German, played and showed off their tricks. Other small folk, like gnomes, also took part in the tableau. The kabouters are the dark elves who live in forests and mines. The white elves live in the open fields in the sunshine. Okay, the wee elven folk. I guess they are. Yeah, they do have the little ears. Okay. The gnomes do the thinking, but the kabouters carry out the work of mining and the gathering of the precious stones and materials. They are short, thick fellows, very strong, and are strenuous in digging out coal and iron, copper, and gold. When they were first made, they were so ugly that they had to live where they could not be seen, that is, in the dark places. The grown imps look like old men with beards, but no one ever heard of a kabouter that was taller than a yardstick. As for the babies, they are hardly bigger than a man's thumb. The big boys and girls in the kabouter kingdom are not much over a foot high. What is peculiar about them all is that they help the good and wise people do things better, but they love to plague and punish the dull folks that are stupid, foolish, or naughty. In impish glee, they lure the blockheads to do worse. A long time ago, there were no church spires or bells in the land of the Dutch folks, as now they are by the thousands. The good teachers from the south came into the country and taught the people to have better manners, finer clothes, and more wholesome food. They also persuaded them to forget their cruel gods and habits of revenge. The church! As you said, Pillow, the church is behind it. They told of the Father in heaven who loves us all as his children and forgives us when we repent of our evil doings. Sure. Now, when the chief gnomes and kabouters heard of the newcomers in the land, they held a meeting and said one to the other, "We shall help all the teachers that are good and kind, but we shall plague and punish the rough fellows among them." So word was sent to all the little people in the mines and the hills, instructing them how they were to act and what they were to do. Some of the new teachers, who were foreigners and did not know the customs of the country, were very rude and rough. Every day they hurt the feelings of the people. With their axes they cut down sacred trees. They laughed scornfully at the holy wells and springs of water. They reviled the people when they prayed to the great Woden with his black ravens that told him everything, or to the gentle Freya with her white doves who listened to good girls, who helped good girls get kind husbands. They scolded the children at play, and this made their fathers and mothers feel miserable. This is the reason why so many people were angry and sullen and would not listen to the foreign teachers. Well, yeah, if you laugh at their way of life, they're not gonna like you. I feel like Freya's a Norse god. Odin and Freya, right? Hold on. I thought Norse mythology was... Yeah, I thought Norse was like Scandinavian. I didn't think it reached into the Netherlands. Northern Germanic peoples. Huh. Interesting. I guess it reached farther than I thought. I learned so much during every one of these streams. Okay, so they didn't want to listen to these foreign teachers. Worse than this, many troubles came to the outsiders. Their bread was sour when they took it out of the oven. So was the milk in their pans. Sometimes they found their beds turned upside down. Gravel stones rattled down into their fireplaces. Their hats and shoes were missing. In fact, they had a terrible time generally and wanted to go back home. When the kabooter has a grudge against anyone, he knows how to plague him. But the teachers that were wise and gentle had no trouble. They persuaded people with kind words, and just as a baby learns to eat other food at the table, so the people were turned away from cruel customs and foolish beliefs. I am literally reading this word for word. I am not putting my own opinions into it. I don't think they are cruel and foolish. But this particular folktale seems to be influenced by the church. Many of the land's folk came to listen to the teachers and helped them gladly to build churches. More wonderful than this were the good things that came to these kind teachers, they knew not how. Their bread and milk were sweet and always in plenty. They found their beds made up and their clothes kept clean, gardens planted with blooming flowers, and much hard work done for them. When they would build a church in a village, they wondered how it was that the wood, the nails, the iron necessary to brace the beams, and the copper and brass for the sacred vessels came so easily and in plenty. When on some nights they wondered where they would get food to eat, they found, on waking up in the morning, that there was always something good ready for them. Thus many houses of worship were built, and there were the more numerous were the churches, the more did farms, cows, grain fields, and happy people multiply. Now, when the gnomes and kabooters, who like to do work for pleasant people, heard that the good teachers wanted church bells to call the people to worship, they resolved to help the strangers. They would make not only a bell or a chime, but actually a carillon. Carillon? C-A-R-I-L-L-O-N. That is a new word for me. All right. Or a concert of bells to hang up in the air. Okay, so I guess that's what's in the illustration. The dark dwarves did not like to dig metal for swords or spears or what would hurt people, but the church bells would guide travelers in the forest and quiet the storms that destroyed houses and upset boats and killed or drowned people, besides inviting the people to come and pray and sing. They knew that the good teachers were poor and could not buy bells in France or Italy. Even if they had the money, they could not get them through the thick forests or over the stormy seas, for they were far too heavy. When all the kabooters were told of this, they came together to work night and day in the mines. With a pick and a shovel, crossbow or crowbar and chisel, hammer and mallet, oh my god, I swear I can read, they broke up the rocks containing copper and tin. Then they built great roaring fires to smelt the ore into ingots. They would show the teachers that the Dutch kabooters could make bells, as well as the men in the lands of the south. These dwarfish people are jealous of men and are very proud of what they could do. It was the funniest sight to see these short-legged fellows with tiny coats coming just below their thighs in little red caps, looking like a stocking ending in a tassel on their heads, and in shoes that had no laces but very long points. They flew around lively as monkeys, and when the fire was hot, they threw off everything and worked much harder and longer than men do. Were they like other fairies? Well, hardly. One must put away all his usual thoughts when he thinks of kabooters. No filmy wings on their backs, no pretty clothes or gauzy garments or stars or crowns or wands. Instead of these were hammers, pickaxes, and chisels. But how diligent, useful, and lively these little folks, in plain, coarse coats and with bare legs. In place of things light, clean, and easy, the kabooters had furnaces, crucibles, fires of coal and wood. Sometimes they were grimy with smoke and coal dust, and the sweat ran down their faces and bodies, yet there was always plenty of water in the mines, and when hard work was over, they washed and looked plain, but tidy. Besides their stores of gold and silver and precious stones, which they kept ready to give to good people, they had tools with which to tease or tantalize cruel, mean, or lazy folks. Now, when the kabooter daddies began the roaring fires for the making of the bells, the little mothers in the small fry in the kabooter world could not afford to be idle. One and all they came down from off the earth, and into the mines they went in a crowd. They left off teasing milkmaids, tangling skeins of flax, tearing fishermen's nets, and tying knots into cows' tails, tumbling pots, pans, and dishes in the kitchen, or hiding hats, throwing stones down the chimney into fireplaces. They even ceased their fun mocking of children who were calling the cows home by hiding behind the rocks and shouting to them instead of all these tricks. They saved their breath to blow the fires into a blast. Everybody wondered where the cabs were, for on the farms and in town nothing happened, and all was quiet, as when a baby is asleep. For days and weeks underground the dwarves toiled until their skins, already dark, became as sooty as the rafters in the houses of our ancestors. Finally, when all the labor was over, the chief gnomes were invited down into the mines to inspect the work. What a sight! There were at least 100 bells of all sizes, like as in a family, where there are daddy, mother, grown-ups, young sons and daughters, little folk and babies, whether single, twins, or triplets. Big bells that could scarcely be put inside a hogshead, bells that would go into a barrel, bells that filled a bushel and others a peck, stood in rows. From the middle and tapering down the row were scores more, some of them no larger than cowbells. Others at the end were so small that one had to think of pint and gill measures. Besides all these, there were stacks of iron rods and bars, bolts, nuts, screws, and wires and yokes on which to hang the bells. One party of the strongest of the kabooters had been busy in the forest close to a village where some men, ordered to do so by a foreign teacher, had begun to cut down some of the finest and most sacred of the grand old trees. They had left their tools in the woods, but the cabs at night seized their axes and before morning, without making any noise, had leveled all but the holy trees. Those they spared. Then the timber, all cut and squared, ready to hold the bells, was brought to the mouth of the mine. Now in Dutch, the name for bell is cloak, so a wise and gray-bearded gnome was chosen by the high-sounding title of Glockenspiel, or bell player, to test the bells for a carillon. Glockenspiel. Bell player. Glockenspieler. I love a glockenspiel. It's one of my favorite little... It sounds so magical, I think. Alright. They were all hung for practice on the big trestles in a long row. Each one of the frames was called a hang, for they were just like those on which fishermen's nets were laid to dry and be mended. So, when all were ready, washed in their clean clothes, every one of the kabooter families, daddies, mothers, and young ones, were ranged in lines and made to sing. The heavy male tenors and baritones, the female sopranos and contraltos, the trebles of the little folks, and the squeaks of the very small children, down to the babies cooing, were all heard by the gnomes who were judges. The high and mighty Glockenspieler, or master of the carillon, chose those voices with best tone and quality from which to set in order and regulate the bells. It was pitiful to see how mad and jealous some of the kabooters, male and female, were when they were not appointed to the first row, in which some of the biggest of the males and some of the fattest of the females. The line tapered off 40 to 50 young folks, including urchins of either sex, down to mere babies that could hardly stand. These had bibs on and had to be held up by their fond mothers. Each one by itself could squeal and squall, coo and crow lustily, but at a distance their voices blended, and the noise they made sounded like a tinkle. All being ready, the old gnome bit his tuning fork, hummed a moment, then started a tune. Along the line, at a signal from the chief gnome, they started a tune. In the long line, there were at first booms and peals, twanging and clanging, jangling and wrangling, making such a clangor that it sounded more like an uproar than an opera. The chief gnome was almost discouraged. But neither a gnome nor a kabooter gives up. The master of the choir tried again and again. He scolded one old daddy for singing too low. He frowned at a stalwart young fellow who tried to drown out all the rest with his bull-like bellow. He shook his finger at a kabooter girl that was flirting with a handsome lad near her. He cheered up the little folks, encouraging them to hold up their voices until finally he had all in order. Then they practiced until the master gnome thought he had his scale of notation perfect and gave orders to attune the bells. To the delight of all the gnomes, kabooters, and elves that had been invited to the concert, the rows of bells, 100 or more, from boomers to tinklers, made harmony. Strung one above the other, they could render merriment or sadness in solos, peals, chimes, cascades, and carillons with sweetness and effect. At the low notes, the babies called out, "Cow, cow," but at the high ones, "Bird, bird." So it happened that on the very day that the bishop had his great church built, with a splendid bulb spire on top, all nicely furnished within, but without one bell to ring in it, that the kabooters planned a great surprise. It was night. The bishop was packing his saddlebags, ready to make a journey on horseback to Rheims. At this city, the great caravans from India and China ended, bringing to the annual fair rugs, spices, gems, and the merchants of Rheims rolled in gold. Here the bishop would beg the money or ask for a bell or chimes. Suddenly, in the night, while in his own house, there rang music in the air, such as the bishop had never heard in Holland or any of the 17 provinces of the Netherlands. Not even in the old lands, France, Spain, or Italy, where the Christian teachers, builders, and singers, and the music of the bells had long been heard, had such a flood of sweet sounds ever fallen on human ears. Here, in these northern regions, rang out not a solo, nor a peal, nor a chime, nor even a cascade from one bell, or from many bells, but a long program of richest music in the air, something which no other country, however rich or old, possessed. It was a carillon, that is a continued mass of real music in which whole tunes, songs, and elaborate pieces of such length, mass, and harmony as only a choir of many voices, a band of music, or an orchestra of many performers could produce. To get this grand work of hanging in the spire done in one night and before daylight also required a whole regiment of fairy toilers who must work like bees. For if one ray of sunshine struck any one of the kabooters, he was at once petrified. The light elves lived in the sunshine and thrived on it, but for dark elves like kabooters, whose home was underground, sunbeams were as poisoned arrows, bringing sure death, for they were turned into stone. Happily, the task was finished before the eastern sky grew gray or the cocks crowed. While it was yet dark, the music in the air flooded the earth. The people in their beds listened with rapture. "Laus Deo, praise God," devoutly cried the surprised bishop. "It sounds like a choir of angels. Surely the cherubim and seraphim are here. Now is fulfilled the promise of the psalmist. The players on the instruments shall be there." So from this beginning, so mysterious to the rough, unwise, and stupid teachers, but by degrees clearer to the tactful ones who were kind and patient, the carillon spread over all the region between the forests of Ardennes in the island in the North Sea. The Netherlands became the land of melodious symphonies and tinkling bells. No town, however poor, but in time, had its carillon. Every quarter of an hour, the sweet music of hymn or song made the air vocal, while at striking of the hours, the pious bowed their heads, and the workmen heard the call for rest, or they took cheer because their day's toil was over. At sunrise, noon, or sunset, the Angelus, and at night the curfew sounded their calls. It grew into a fashion that on stated days, great concerts were given, lasting over an hour, when the grand works of the masters of music were rendered, and famous carillon players came from all over the Netherlands to compete for prizes. The Low Countries became a famous school in which glockenspielers by scores were trained. Thus, no kingdom, however rich or great, ever equaled the land of the carillon, making the air sweet with both melody and harmony. Excuse me, oh my goodness. Nobody ever sees a kabooter nowadays, for in the New World, when the woods are nearly all cut down, the world made by steam engine and telegraph, and wireless message, the automobile, airplane, and submarine, cycle, and undersea boat, the little folks in the mines and the forests are forgotten. The chemists, miners, engineers, and learned men possess the secrets, which were once those of the fairies only. Yet the artists and architects, the clockmakers and bell founders who love beauty remember what their fathers once thought and believed. That is the reason why on many a famous clock, either in front of the dial or near the pendulum, are figures of the gnomes, who thought, and the kabooters who wrought, to make the carillons. In Teuton lands, where their cousins are still named kobolds, and in France, where they are called fée, and in England, brownies, they have tolling and ringing of bells, with peals, chimes, and cascades of sweet sound. But the Netherlands still, above all others on earth, is the home of the carillon. Whew! Boy! That's a long story to talk about how the Netherlands has. Hang on, we're gonna look it up. We're gonna see if these bell things are true. The Netherlands bells. Oh, the Netherlands carillon is a 127-foot tall campanile housing a 53-bell carillon. Oh. Oh. Wait a minute. Oh, they moved one to the U.S. Let's see. Do all the churches in the Netherlands have bells? Oh. Apparently the bells go for a long time. Interesting. Yeah, there's a bunch of different articles. The carillon in Dutch culture. Okay. Alright. Often housed in bell towers, the carillon is a musical instrument consisting of at least 23 bells, which ring out when played on a keyboard. So when you push the button on the keyboard, bell goes ding dong. I wonder how that works. Interesting. The keyboard is similar to a piano or organ, and each key is linked to a bell with a different pitch. Interesting. Yo! Hello! I do not know how to pronounce your username. I like the wind? Is that how you say it? What shall I call you? Hello, friend. Thank you for following. Welcome to the Dumpster Club. We're talking Dutch folklore. Folklore from the Low Countries, as I am off to the Netherlands next weekend. Let us know what we should call you and your pronouns in the chat. We're happy you're here. Thank you for joining. Okay. Oh, and I'm going to be in the Netherlands during the king's birthday, and there's a big like celebration, and apparently if the article I'm reading is correct, all these bells are going to be playing out for the king's birthday. All right. Carillons have been played. They've played an important part in Dutch society for many centuries. In the beginning, the instrument largely played melodies relating to church services, but because bells were located in towers and their sound could reach a wide area, they also served as a warning system. Carillon bells would warn villagers of an approaching storm, the arrival of the military or the mailman, and boats coming in from the sea. Okay, interesting. Your name is based off the most mysterious song on the internet? Oh. Interesting. I don't know that song, the mysterious song on the internet. Well, I'll have to do some searching on my trip next week for some bells. And if I get any good, pretty music, I can record it and post it in the Discord server. Alright. I think I have time for maybe one more story. It was recorded off of a German radio station in 1986 and no one knows its name. Well, that's cool. That's interesting. I wonder. Somebody just recorded it and didn't notate the name? Has anyone tried contacting the radio station if it still exists? Interesting. All right. I think we have time for one more story or one more creature. Let's see. What was the one that you mentioned, Elliot? The woman with like 300, what the fuck? Hang on. 366 children. I found it. Oh my god. There's a list of names. The woman with 366 children. Interesting. You like that song quite a bit. They've tried? Oh, they said IDK, bro. Okay. Well, damn it. Interesting. Lost media is such an interesting topic. It really is. The woman with 366 children. Why? Why would you do that with yourself? Is there... I don't know if there's... I don't know if there's a picture for that, so I'm just gonna... Oh, that's wrong. Okay. I'm gonna move back to the center. Hello! Where is the woman with 366 children? I assume there's some fairy nonsense afoot. There's so many of these types of songs, they have their own genre. Lost Wave? Lost Wave. Hang on, I'm gonna look that up. Lost Wave. By George, there he is. Lost Wave is a term used to describe obscure music from an unknown source, with information including title, artist, album, and dates being generally unknown or scarce. There it is, the most mysterious song on the internet. There's like a whole list of these things. Dang. We could do a stream on that. That could be a whole rabbit hole we go into. Interesting. Okay. Damn, if y'all would be interested in that. Getting pregnant that much in such a short period of time. Yeah, that is definitely unhealthy. Hold on, I'm gonna see. Okay, I think I would prefer this version. Some of the translations on this particular book are a lot. Oh no, I think this is the same thing. But the text is bigger, so it's easier for my eyeballs to read. Alright, we're gonna learn about the woman with 366 children. Let's see what supernatural nonsense is happening. Long, long ago, before the oldest stork was young, and big deer and little fawns were very many in the Dutch forest, there was a pond famous for its fish, which lay in the very heart of Holland, with woods nearby. Hunters came with their bows and arrows to hunt the stags. Or out of the bright waters, boys and men in the sunshine drew out the fish with shining scales, or lured out the trout with fly bait from their hiding places. In those days, the fish pond was called Viver, and the woods, where the deer ran, Rensselaer, or the deer's lair. I am so sorry. My Dutch is trash. I'm with you, Inu. That's unhealthy. Miriam Nabatanzi, the world... 44! Jesus! That is... Ooh! That's... Ah... God, I can't even imagine. I really can't. That's... Oh, no thank you. Like, a real person doing that? How many would you... You'd have to be... Because that takes 9 months. You would have to be... you would have to be pregnant for, like, 40-something years straight in order to do that. Ay, Jesus. Or, like, have multiples. Right? That's what I'm saying. That's crazy. She's Slavic, it makes sense. Listen, I'm not gonna say anything on that because I'm an American and I am not familiar with the culture on that. Jesus. Godspeed. God help her and her family. How does she afford that? I mean, I guess they're not all in the same house at once. I don't know. Man, we thought the Duggars were bad. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to this lady. Because of the forests of oak and beech and alder trees were so fine, and game on land and the water so plentiful, the lord of the country came here and built his castle. He made a hedge around his estate, so that the people called the place the Count's Hedge. Even today, within the beautiful city, the forests with their grand old trees still remained, and the fish pond is there yet with its swans. On the little island, the fluffy, downy cygnets are born and grow to be big birds with long necks bent like an arch. In another part of the town also, with their trees for nesting and their pond for wading, are children of the same storks, whose fathers and mothers lived there before America was discovered. By and by, many people of rank and fortune came to The Hague for its society. They built their grand houses at the slope of the hill, not far away from the Viver, and in time, a city grew up. Proud atheist, not gonna change for no one, right? Imagine having a 43-year-old, God, I can't imagine that age gap. That's crazy. Was there fertility treatments involved? I've heard of... Oh. I didn't know that. So you go from not being fertile at all to just like you even think of fornicating and boom, pregnant. Oh God, that's a lot. What are my pronouns? You just want to be in the know. I use all of them. They, she, he. They, them is usually the most preferred right now because I'm gender fluid, so it can kind of change. But honestly, I like a good mix, but they is always safe. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Should I call you Wind? What should I call you? You didn't answer the question. Okay. Hang on. So there was a city. How do we get to the woman? Okay. It was a fine sight to see the lords and ladies riding out from the castle into the country. The cavalcade was very splendid, and they went hawking. There were pretty women on horseback and gentlemen in velvet clothes with feathers in their hats, and the horses seemed proud to bear them. The falconers followed on foot, with the hunting birds perched on a hoop, with the man inside the circle carried round him. Each falcon had on a little cap or a hood, which was fastened over its head. When this was taken off, it flew high into the air on its hunt for big and little birds, which it brought down for its masters. There were also men with dogs to beat the reeds and bushes, and to drive the smaller birds from shelter. The huntsmen were armed with spears, lest a wild boar or bear should rush out and attack them. God, me and the bears. I have bear trauma from fucking Yakuza. It was always a merry day when a hawking party in their fine clothes and gay trappings started out. What does this have to do with the woman with all the kids? There were huts as well as places and palaces and poor people also at The Hague. Among these was a widow whose twin babies were left without anything to eat. For her husband and their father had been killed in the war. Having no money to buy a cradle and her babies being too young to be left alone, she put the pair of little folks on her back and went out to beg. You could call me Sony TPS L2 portable cassette stereo Walkman, or just Walkman for simplicity. Okay, Walkman, I'll do that. Walkman. Are you into retro music, I'm guessing? I mean, same. Love that shit. Bears! No more bears! No more! I can't handle all the bears! Oh. Alright, so she went to go beg for food for her children. There was a fine lady, a countess, who lived with her husband, the count, near the Vivier. She was childless and very jealous of other women who were mothers and had children playing around them. On this day, when the beggar woman with her 2 babies on her back came along, the grand lady was in an unusually bad temper. For all her pretty clothes, she was not a person of fine manners. Indeed, she often acted more like a snarling dog, ready to snap at anyone who should speak to her. Although she had cradles and nurses and lovely baby clothes already, there was no baby. This spoiled her disposition, so that her husband and servants could hardly live with her. On one day after dinner, there had been everything good to eat and drink on her table, and plenty of it. The countess went out to walk in front of her house. It was the 3rd day of January, but the weather was mild. The beggar woman, with her 2 babies on her back and their arms round her neck, crying with hunger, came trudging along. She went into the garden and asked the countess for food or alms. She expected surely at least a slice of bread, a cup of milk, or a small coin. Oh. Uh-oh. Got a bot. Hang on. None of my mods are here, so we're gonna ban you. You're banned. And soon, my friend, you will also be banned. Goodbye! What did you come back to? Trolls, bots, something. That's alright. They are gone. You also came back to the woman with 366 children. Trashy godparent taking out the trash. Exactly. Also, welcome back, Boomsday. You take back the welcome to the bot. No worries. Assholes on the internet are going to be assholes. Also, thank you, Katie, for the hydrate. I am hydrating. Yeah, the 366 children sounds painful. Very painful. I think we're probably getting close to how that happened. You listen to Billy Joel, Anita Franklin, Eartha Kitt, Rick Astley, Mick Gordon, and Metallica. Yes. Good taste. We love it. Nani? For real. That's a lot. All right, so the woman with the twins, the widow with the twins, was going to the countess. The countess cannot have children, and she's in a very bad mood because of it. And so the lady with the twins is coming to beg, but I don't think she's going to get anything. She expected surely at least a slice of bread, a cup of milk, or a small coin. But the countess was rude to her and denied her both food and money. She even burst into a bad temper and reviled the woman for having 2 children instead of 1. Where did you get those brats? They are not yours. You just brought them here to play on my feelings and excite my jealousy. Begone. But the poor woman kept her temper. She begged piteously and said, for the love of heaven, feed my babies, even if you will not feed me. No, they are not yours. You're a cheat, said the fine lady, nursing her rage. You are shock, for real. You eat garbage? Are you a raccoon? We're just going on the anime quotes over here. No, they are not yours. You're a cheat, said the fine lady, nursing her rage. Indeed, madame, they are both my children and born on one day. They have one father, but he is dead. He was killed in the war while serving his grace, your husband. Don't tell me such a story, snapped back the countess, now in a fury. I don't believe that anyone, man or woman, could have 2 children at once. Away with you! And she seized a stick to drive off the poor woman. Damn. That's, you've never heard of twins before, lady? Never? Shit. Okay. Well, this lady's rich and dumb. All right. Now it was the turn of the beggar to answer back. Both had lost their temper, and the 2 angry women seemed more like she-bears robbed of their whelps. Heaven punish you, you wicked, cruel, cold-hearted woman, cried the mother. Her 2 babies were almost choking her in their eagerness for food, yet their cries never moved the rich lady who had bread and good things to spare, while their poor parent had not a drop of milk to give them. The countess now called her men servants to drive the beggar away. This they did most brutally. They pushed the poor woman outside the garden gate and closed it behind her. As she turned away, the poor mother, taking each of her children by its back, one in each hand, and held them up before the grand lady and cried out loudly so that all heard her. May you have as many children as there are days in the year. Oof. Ignorant, right? No remorse, no regret. We don't care what it meant. Another day, another death, another sorrow, another breath. Yes. Jesus. Conjoined. No, they're not conjoined twins. They're just regular twins. But yeah, eat the rich. Now, with all her burning in her breast, what the beggar woman really meant was this. It was the 3rd of January, so there were but 3 days in the year so far. She intended to say that, instead of having to care for 2 children, that the countess might have the trouble of rearing 3, and all born on the same day. But the fine lady in her mansion cared nothing for the beggar woman's words. Why would she? She had her lordly husband, who was a count, and he owned thousands of acres. Besides, she possessed vast riches. In her great house were 10 men servants and 31 maid servants, together with her rich furniture and fine clothes and jewels. The lofty brick church, which she went to on Sundays, was hung with the coat of arms of her famous ancestors. The stone floor, with its great slabs, was so grandly carved with the crests of heraldry of her family that to walk over these was like climbing a mountain or tramping across a plowed field. Common folks had to be careful lest they should stumble over the bosses and knobs of carved tombs. A long train of her servants and tenants on the farms followed her when she went to worship. Inside the church, the lord and lady sat in high seats on velvet cushions and under a canopy. Imagine yelling someone, I hope you get really, really pregnant, Stinky. God, right? The convent would have a lot of kids, not the convent. Oh no, not the convent. Oh God. Okay, let's see. By the time summer had come, according to the fashion in all good Dutch families, all sorts of pretty baby clothes were made ready. They were soft, warm, swaddling bands, tiny socks, and long white linen dresses. A baptismal blanket covered with silk was made for the christening and daintily embroidered. Plenty of lace and pink and blue ribbons, pink for a girl and blue for a boy, were kept at hand, and because there might be twins, a double set of garments was provided, besides baby bathtubs and all sorts of nice things for little stranger or strangers, whether one or two to come. Even names were chosen, one for a boy and the other for a girl. Would it be a Wilhelm, or Wilhelmina? It was real fun to think over the names, but it was hard to choose out of so many. At last, the Countess crossed off all but 46. Okay, so, and then there's a list of names. I'm not going to read them. But before the sun set on the expected day, it was neither one boy nor girl nor both, nor were all the 46 names chosen sufficient, for the beggar woman's wish had come true in a way not expected. There were as many as, and no fewer children than, there were days in the year, and since this was a leap year, there were 366 little folks in the house, so that other names besides the 46 had to be used. Yet, none of these wee creatures was bigger than a mouse! That's horrifying. Oh God, that's awful. What? So she thought she was normal pregnant. Nah. Tiny, small, itty bitty hundreds. Ugh. Je hebt. You verspilled? Yeah, I am not going to say that until I know what it means. I know je hebt is you have. You've wasted your time coming down here? You've wasted your time. Je hebt je tid verspilled. You've wasted your time. Okay, interesting. Names are the least of her problems, right? Wait, no, she couldn't. She would have exploded if she carried them to term. Jesus. Alright, none of these wee creatures was bigger than a mouse. Beginning at daylight, one after another appeared, first a girl, then a boy, so that after the 48th, the nurse was at her wit's end to give them names. It was not possible to keep the little babies apart. The 31 servant maids of the mansion were all called in to help in sorting out the girls from the boys, but soon it all seemed hopeless to try and pick out Peter from Henry or Catalina from Anitje. After an hour or two spent at the task, and the others coming along, the women found that it was useless to try any longer. It was found that little Piet, Jan, Klaas, Hank, Do, Japik among the boys, and Molly, Kalina, Elsa, Anya, and Marie were all getting mixed up. So they gave up the attempt in despair. Besides, the supply of pink and blue ribbons had given out long before, after the first dozen or so were born. As for the baby clothes made ready, they were of no use, for all the garments were too big. In one of the long dresses, tied up like a bag, one might possibly, with stuffing, have put a whole family of 366 brothers and sisters. Yeah, I kind of imagined that, Elita, but I did not want to talk about that. Do you speak Dutch? Oh, you like my streams? Do you? Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. I appreciate it. Just in time for the brood mother. Yeah, yep. Okay, it was not likely such small fry of human beings could live long. So the good Bishop of Guy of Utrecht, when he heard the beggar woman's curse had come true, in so unexpected a manner, ordered that all of the babies should be baptized at once. The Count, who was strict in his ideas of both custom and church law, insisted on it too. So nothing would do but to carry the tiny infants to church. How to get them there was a question. The whole house had been rummaged to provide things to carry the little folks in, but the supply of trays and mince pie dishes and crocks was exhausted at the 360th baby. So there was left only a Turk's head or a round glazed earthen dish, fluted and curved, which looked like the turban of a Turk, hence its name. Into this, the last batch of babies, or extra 6 girls, were stowed. Curiously enough, number 366 was an inch taller than the others. To 30 housemaids was given a tray, for each was to carry 12 mannikins and one the last 6 in the Turk's head. Instead of rich silk blankets, a wooden tray and no clothes on must suffice. In the Grote Kerk, or Great Church, the bishop was waiting with his assistants, holding brass basins full of holy water for the christening. All the town, including the dogs, were out to see what was going on. Many boys and girls climbed up on the roofs of the one-story houses or in the trees to get a better view of the curious procession, the like of which had never been seen in The Hague before. Neither has anything like it ever been since. Oh, baby machine guns! Stop it! Ah! I'm gonna head out for the evening. Please learn all about the silly little Dutch creatures. Have a good night, Katie. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Isn't that because certain doctrines say if babies aren't baptized, they go to... Yes, that is correct. Not the Call of Cthulhu audiobook. Damn. Honestly, I wouldn't mind reading some audiobooks. How do I get that job? Okay, so the parade began. First went the Count, with his captains and trumpeters blowing their trumpets. These were followed by the men servants, all dressed in their best Sunday clothes, who had the crest of arms of their master the Count on their backs and breasts. Then came on the company of 31 maids, each one carrying a tray, on which there were 12 mannikins or minikins. 20 of these trays were round and made of wood, lined with velvet, smooth and soft, but 10 were of earthenware, oblong in shape like a manger. In these every year were baked the Christmas pies. At first, all went on finely, for the outdoor air seemed to put the babies asleep, and there was no crying. But no sooner were they inside the church than about 200 of the brats began wailing and whimpering. Pretty soon they set up such a squall that the Count felt ashamed of his progeny, and the bishop looked very unhappy. To make matters worse, one of the maids, although warned of the danger, stumbled over the helmet of an old crusader carved in stone that rose some 6 inches or so above the floor. In a moment she fell and lay sprawling, spilling out at least a dozen babies. "Heilige Maker, Holy Mary," she cried as she rolled over. "Have I killed them?" Happily, the wee ones were thrown against the long-trained gown of an old lady walking directly in front of her so that they were unhurt. They were easily picked up and laid on the tray again, and once more the line started. The Dutch lived in the medieval for far too long. What? They've seen too much? That's why they're chill? Shit, we'll find out. Happily, the bishop had been notified that he would not have to call out the names of the infants. That is 366, for this would have kept him at the solemn business all day long. It was arranged that instead of any on the list of the chosen 46, to so be named, all the boys shall be called John, and all the girls Elizabeth, or in Dutch, Jan and Lisbeth. Yet, even to say John 180 times and Lisbeth 186 times nearly tired the old gentleman to death, for he was fat and slow. So, after the first 6 trays full of wee folks had been sprinkled, one at a time, the bishop decided to asperse them. That is, shake from a mop or brush the holy water on a tray full of babies at one time. So he called for the aspersorium. Then, clipping this basin of holy water, he scattered the drops over the wee folk until all, even the 6 extra girl babies in the Turk's head, were sprinkled. Probably because the bishop thought a Turk was next door to a heathen. He dropped more water than usual on the last 6, until the young ones squealed lustily with the cold. It was noted, on the contrary, that the little folks in the mince pie dishes were gently handled, as if the good man had visions of Christmas coming and good things were on the table. No, I don't think the uterus could handle that either. Yet it was evident that such tiny people could not bear what healthy babies of full size would be thinking of, whether it was because of the damp weather or the cold air in the brick church, or too much excitement, or because there were not 366 nurses or milk bottles ready. It came to pass that every one of the wee creatures died when the sun went down. Damn, that's sad. Just when they were buried is not told, but for hundreds of years there was, in one of the Hague churches, a monument in honor of these little folks, who lived but a day. It was graven with portraits in stone of the Count and Countess, and told of their children, as many as the days of the year. Nearby were hung up the 2 basins in which the holy water used by the bishops in sprinkling the babies was held. The year, the month, and the day of the wonderful event were also engraved. Many and many people from various lands came to visit the tomb. The guidebook spoke of it, and tender women wept, as they thought how 366 little cradles in the Count's castle would have looked had each baby lived. I don't know about that. I don't know. Wow. I wonder if the Countess ever had any normal-sized children. Damn. Please don't. What? I don't know what that link is. That's why they rushed to baptize them. Yeah. Yeah, we talked about her, Miriam Nabatanzi. Yes. Not to worry. That's shoosh. Man. 300, I can't. I can't. I don't know how to deal with that. Have I done any gaming streams? Oh, yes. Yes, we have. We play Yakuza games every Tuesday. We're currently playing Yakuza 5. That happens every Tuesday. We're going to be starting the new Ace Attorney game. Or not new. The second one. I've never played Ace Attorney. We finished up the first one. So we're going to start the second one next week. I have played Sucker for Love. I played it once. Because my buddy Michaela voices Lynetta. So I played it because Michaela was in it. But I did play it. That was, man, when the second goddess came in, I was like, I'm fucked. I'm gonna die. This is not gonna end well. But yes, I do play games. But we hadn't done folklore and stuff in a while, so I decided it would be a good time, especially since I'm traveling. I'm a meanie. Oh, S tier is a meanie. Yes, she is. But you know, the plot, the writers had to make somebody mean for plot, probably. Auntie Nyan Nyan? Auntie Nyan Nyan? Is that me? Is that supposed to be me? Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, honestly, I think that's going to be it from me tonight. I think that's a pretty wild one to end on, but Let's see. Our next stream for the week is on Saturday. We've had enough. No, it's funny. Oh, Auntie Nyan Nyan's a sucker for love character. Dang. Maybe I should get into, I don't know. I have so many things to play. There's so many things on my list. No more babies, right? No more. No more bears, no more babies. I've had enough. Just talking about it is tiring, exhausting, right? But, so we streamed Yakuza yesterday. We've done some folklore. Next stream is Kaigai Idols on Saturday, 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time. A rare Saturday afternoon stream. Because I'm teaching on Friday when I would usually stream. So, I hope I will see you on Saturday. We're doing bunny idols. Wabbits. It's gonna be a good time. If there are any bunny idol things that we should watch that you think would be good, let me know. Post it in the Discord server. Oh, and Walkman, we do have a Discord server. If you're into that and you want to scream about things with the rest of the community, let's go for it. Let's see what's happening today. Who can I raid? Hazumi is live, but we raided her yesterday. Lex is live, playing Voices of the Void. Odessa is playing Yakuza 0. And Lynn is playing Shinkansen 0. Is something about spookies. Let's see. Let's raid Odessa. We always love Odessa. We'll go hang out, and we love Yakuza. If you ! Discord, or I can do it. Discord! There it is. There's your link. Let's go say hi to Odessa. And I will see y'all on Saturday. Oop, let me start the raid. Let's go say hi to Odessa, and then we'll see y'all on Saturday for some Kaigai Idol shenanigans. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and thank you for all of your cryptid and folklore suggestions. It was a great time. It was a wild time. Let me tell you, Dutch folklore is wild. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on Saturday. Bye.